Admiral Taiwan stood tall on the command bridge of the Krolaxian flagship, his eyes fixed on the massive view screen that dominated the wall. His dark uniform, adorned with gleaming medals and insignia of conquest, rustled softly as he clasped his hands behind his back. The Sol system appeared before him, a shining yellow star surrounded by its planets, the third one glowing blue and green against the blackness of space. "Beautiful," he murmured, "and soon to be ours." The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, the soft beeping of instruments and low hum of the ship's engines creating a backdrop of efficiency. Commander Hyun-ki approached with a data tablet, bowing slightly. "Admiral, our long-range scans confirm what our intelligence suggested. Their orbital defenses are minimal, mostly communication satellites and primitive space stations. Their military capabilities appear to be concentrated on the planet's surface." Taiwan smiled. It was always the same with these isolated worlds. They focused inward, fighting amongst themselves, never looking to the stars until it was too late. The Krolaxian Empire had conquered 17 systems using this same approach: appear suddenly, overwhelm quickly, and rule completely. "Maintain position just beyond their detection range," he ordered. "Prepare the battle fleet for full deployment. And draft the standard ultimatum." "Yes, Admiral," Hyun-ki responded, turning to relay the orders. The massive Krolaxian armada hung in space like a swarm of metallic insects, over 300 warships arranged in perfect formation. Each vessel bristled with weapon ports and shield generators. They had never lost a conquest, and Admiral Taiwan had personally led 12 successful campaigns. Earth would be lucky number 13. "Sir, the ultimatum is ready for your approval," said Communications Officer Min-Soo. Taiwan reviewed the message on his personal screen. The wording was perfect, formal enough to intimidate, clear enough to understand. "Submit or be destroyed. Simple. Send it," he ordered. "Let these humans know the futility of resistance." The officer's fingers danced across the control panel. "Transmission complete, sir. The message has been broadcast on all their major communication frequencies." Taiwan nodded and turned to look at the distant blue planet once more. "Now we wait. Though I doubt we'll wait long. Most species surrender within hours once they see our fleet." On Earth, in the underground complex of the United Earth Defense Command beneath the Pacific Ocean, General Kim Hanna sat at the head of a large oval table. The room was bright but austere, with screens covering the walls displaying global defense systems, orbital sensors, and now, the massive alien fleet that had appeared at the edge of the solar system. The general's uniform was simple compared to the Krolaxian admiral's. Dark blue with minimal insignia, practical rather than decorative. She reached up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear as the alien message finished playing on the main screen. She raised a single eyebrow, then glanced around at the 12 men and women seated at the table. These were the commanders of Earth's united military forces, representatives from every continent, every former nation. Their faces remained calm, professional. Some even hid small smiles. "Well," she said simply. "Thoughts?" Admiral Sung, commander of the Pacific Fleet, leaned forward. "They've taken the bait. Those orbital platforms we've been maintaining for the past 50 years have done their job." Intelligence Director Park Ji-ho nodded, his fingers tapping a tablet. "Confirmed. Their scans have focused entirely on our visible infrastructure. The decoy defense grid appears to have convinced them we're at technology level 3, maybe early level 4. Rather than our actual level 7, added General Rodriguez, the slight curl of her lip the only indication of her amusement. The room filled with soft laughter. Earth had been watching the Krolaxian Empire's expansion for decades, gathering intelligence through stealth probes and quantum observers. They had witnessed the conquests, studied the tactics, and prepared accordingly. "They've completely misread our orbital platforms," Director Park continued, bringing up detailed scan results. "As intended, they think those old satellites and stations are our primary defenses. They have no idea about the dimensional shields, the Lunar base, or the orbital defense grid. General Kim nodded, her face serious despite the advantageous situation. Let us not become overconfident. The Krolaxians have conquered many worlds. They are experienced warriors, even if they are technologically behind us. She stood up and walked to the main display, zooming in on the enemy flagship. Their arrogance is their weakness. They believe they are the superior force, which means they will not be prepared for resistance. This gives us an advantage. What's your recommendation, General? Asked the representative from the African Union. General Kim turned to face the table. Let them believe what they wish. We accept their invitation to discuss terms of surrender. Her lips curved into a small smile, though they may find the terms are not what they expected. She pressed a button on the table. Colonel Yoon, please join us. The door slid open and a trim officer entered, bowing slightly. Colonel, please activate Phase 1 of Operation Mirror. Prepare the diplomatic shuttle with the negotiation team, the one we prepared with outdated technology and minimal shielding. Make it look convincing but vulnerable. Yes, General, Colonel Yoon replied. And Colonel, the General added, activate the real fleet, but keep them hidden. Silent running protocols. No emissions, no signals. Full dimensional cloaking. The Colonel nodded sharply and left to carry out the orders. General Kim returned to her seat. We will play this carefully. Let them think we are frightened, overwhelmed by their show of force. Director Park, make sure there's a detectable increase in communication traffic between our military bases. Make it look like panic. With pleasure, General, Park replied with a slight grin. Admiral Sung raised a hand. Should we begin evacuation protocols for civilian populations near potential strike zones? No, General Kim replied firmly. That would tip our hand. The dimensional shields will protect our cities if they attack. Our people have trained for this scenario. Trust them to follow protocols when the time comes. She looked around the table at Earth's United Military Command. Just a century ago, such unity would have been unimaginable, with nations fighting each other for resources and power. But the discovery of the Krolaxian Empire's expansion 30 years ago had changed everything. External threat had accomplished what internal politics never could. True global cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, General Kim said, her voice quiet but commanding, this is what we have prepared for. The Krolaxians believe they are the hunters. Let's not correct that misunderstanding just yet. She activated a secure channel with a press of her finger. This is General Kim. Authorization Alpha 7 Delta 9. Prepare the real fleet. All ships, all stations. Full combat readiness, but maintain stealth protocols. Let's accept their invitation to discuss terms of surrender. As the commanders left to take their positions, General Kim remained alone in the conference room, studying the alien fleet on the screen. Earth had hidden its technological advancements for decades, developing in secret while presenting a facade of a divided, primitive world to any watching eyes. The deception had worked perfectly. You came to conquer what you thought was an easy target, she murmured to the image of the Krolaxian flagship. You're about to learn a difficult lesson about humanity. Admiral Tadwan's laughter echoed across the command bridge of the Krolaxian flagship. The massive view screen displayed Earth's response to their ultimatum, a small group of ships slowly making their way from the blue planet toward the waiting armada. The vessels were clearly visible, with no attempt at stealth or deception. Those vessels are centuries behind our technology, he said, barely containing his amusement. His officers joined in his laughter, all except Commander Dae-hyun, who stood slightly apart from the group. Look at their primitive hulls, their archaic weapon systems. The Earth ships were indeed unremarkable. Boxy constructions with visible weld lines, external thrusters that glowed with chemical propellant rather than quantum drives, and weapon systems that appeared to be simple projectile launchers and low-energy laser arrays. They send 6 ships against our 300, Admiral Tadwan continued, leaning back in his command chair. This is not even going to be a battle. It will be target practice. The bridge crew monitored their stations, some smiling at their admiral's confidence. The conquest of Earth seemed assured, another easy victory for the mighty Krolaxian Empire. Commander Dahyun stepped forward, holding a data tablet. Unlike the others, his face remained serious, his posture tense. He had been studying the intelligence reports since they entered the Sol system, and something didn't feel right. "Admiral," he said quietly, "permission to speak freely." Taiwan waved a hand, still watching the approaching Earth vessels with amused contempt. "What is it, Commander?" "The intelligence reports suggest some inconsistencies in what we're seeing." Dahyun's voice was careful, measured. "Our deep space monitoring stations detected unusual energy fluctuations in this system over the past decade. There are gaps in our surveillance data that cannot be explained by equipment failure." The Admiral's smile faded slightly. He turned to look at his second-in-command with narrowed eyes. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm not certain, sir, but the pattern of technological development on Earth shows unusual acceleration over the last century. Their progression from primitive flight to space travel happened much faster than other species we've encountered." Taiwan stood, towering over his subordinate. "And yet look at what they send to face us. Those are not the ships of an advanced civilization." "That's precisely what concerns me, sir. Why wold? Their intelligence is nothing compared to our might." Taiwan interrupted, his voice sharp enough to make nearby officers flinch. "We have conquered 17 systems with these same tactics. Earth is no different." He turned away from Dahyun, addressing the communications officer instead. "Send the final warning. They have one rotation of their planet to surrender." The commander hesitated, then bowed slightly and returned to his station. He continued to study the incoming data, unable to shake the feeling that they were missing something important. On the view screen, the Earth ships continued their slow approach, making no aggressive moves, broadcasting no threatening messages. They simply advanced steadily toward the waiting Krolaxian fleet. "Pathetic," Taiwan muttered. "They can't even approach at a respectable speed." 239,000 miles away, deep beneath the cratered surface of Earth's moon, Commander Lee Sunmai stood in the center of the Lunar Command Center. The vast circular chamber was carved from the moon's bedrock, reinforced with nanocarbon structures and shielded from detection by technology that made the Krolaxian sensors look primitive by comparison. Unlike the austere UEDC headquarters on Earth, Lunar Command was a marvel of advanced engineering. Holographic displays floated in the air around her, showing real-time data from thousands of sensors throughout the solar system. Officers worked at stations that responded to thought commands as well as touch, their movements efficient and practiced. Commander Lee watched the main display showing the 6 decoy ships approaching the Krolaxian fleet. These vessels were specifically designed to appear primitive, constructed on Earth using outdated methods, staffed with volunteer crews who understood the risks, but equipped with emergency dimensional shift drives that could extract them in microseconds if needed. "Status report," she ordered, her voice calm despite the tension in the room. Lieutenant Jin stepped forward, his uniform bearing the insignia of the Quantum Defense Division. "Stealth platforms online, Commander. All 67 weapon platforms are in position and undetected." Another officer joined them. "Quantum grid stable at 98.9% efficiency. The network can engage on your command." "Battle AIs synchronize," reported a third. "Tactical analysis complete. We have 15 different response scenarios prepared, with 99.7% probability of success, regardless of Krolaxian actions." Commander Lee nodded, her face illuminated by the blue glow of the holographic displays. "And our fleet." The tactical officer gestured, and the display changed to show hundreds of advanced ships hidden in dimensional pockets throughout the solar system. Unlike the decoy vessels, these were sleek, with no visible seams or external components. They existed partially in normal space and partially in folded dimensions, completely invisible to conventional sensors. "All vessels report ready, Commander," Strike groups positioned at all key points. The Kralaxians have no idea they're surrounded. Li Sunmai allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had prepared for this moment for decades. After detecting the first Kralaxian probes 20 years ago, Earth had united its resources and intelligence to develop technologies that would protect them from exactly this kind of threat. The Admiral thinks he's dealing with primitives, she said quietly. He has no idea what he's walked into. She turned to her communications officer. Status of the planetary shield network. Ready to activate on your command, but completely dormant to outside observation. Cities remain unprotected in appearance, as ordered by General Kim. Commander Lee nodded. Good. Let the Kralaxians think their threats have meaning. It will make the lesson more effective. A soft alert sounded, and one of the officers looked up. Commander, the Kralaxians have issued their final warning. One Earth rotation to surrender or face destruction. A hush fell over the command center. Despite their technological advantage, this was still humanity's first contact with an alien empire. The moment carried historical weight that no one in the room took lightly. Commander Lee straightened her back, looking around at her crew. These men and women represented Earth's best. Scientists, soldiers, and tacticians who had trained their entire lives for this confrontation. Send word to General Kim that we're ready on this end. All systems operational. She walked to the main display, studying the Kralaxian fleet. Their ships were impressive by the standards of most worlds they had conquered, but against Earth's hidden defenses, they might as well have been armed with sticks and stones. Good, she nodded, watching as the decoy ships continued their approach. Let's hope the Admiral appreciates the show we're about to give him. Lieutenant Jin looked up from his station. Commander, should we begin Phase 2 preparations? The decoys will be within Kralaxian weapons range in approximately 3 hours. Yes. Alert all personnel to battle stations. Maintain dimensional cloak on all real assets. She paused, then added, and Lieutenant, make sure our people on those decoy ships know they've done their part. Tell them to prepare for immediate extraction on my signal. Yes, Commander. As the command center bustled with quiet activity, Commander Lee looked one more time at the holographic display of the Kralaxian fleet. She felt no hatred toward them, only a calm determination to protect her world. They came expecting to find prey, she said to herself. Instead, they found us. The Kralaxian flagship vibrated with energy as the massive weapon arrays charged to full power. On the command bridge, Admiral Ta-1 stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the 6 Earth vessels on the main view screen. They had ignored his final warning, continuing their slow approach even after the deadline passed. Target their propulsion systems first, he ordered, his voice calm and measured. Let's disable them and see if that changes their attitude towards surrender. Weapons Officer Sangmin nodded. Targeting complete. Admiral. All ships synchronized, awaiting your command. Admiral Ta-1 allowed himself a small smile. This was always his favorite moment in a conquest, that perfect instant when the inferior civilization realized their true position in the galactic hierarchy. The moment when fear replaced arrogance. Fire, he said simply. The Kralaxian weapons blazed across space, brilliant beams of concentrated energy that bridged the void between the fleets in seconds. They struck Earth's decoy ships with devastating effect. Explosions bloomed in the blackness, silent but beautiful in their destruction. Direct hits on all targets, Admiral, reported Sangmin. 5 enemy vessels disabled. 1 appears completely destroyed. The bridge crew erupted in cheers and congratulations. This was exactly the outcome they had expected. Swift, decisive victory against an outmatched opponent. The pattern that had played out across 17 other conquered systems. First victory is ours, Admiral Ta-1 announced, raising his fist in triumph as the explosions continued to fill his view screen. He turned to address his officers. Prepare boarding parties for the disabled vessels. I want prisoners for interrogation about Earth's defense systems. Commander Dahyun was about to respond when an alarm sounded from the sensor station. The young officer manning the console looked up with confusion on her face. "Sir, new contacts appearing. Everywhere." The Admiral's smile faded. "Explain." I don't understand the readings, sir. Sensors show ships appearing from nothing. No approach vectors, no warp signatures. They're just materializing." The main view screen shifted to a tactical display. What had been empty space around the Krolaxian fleet was suddenly filled with new signatures. Hundreds, then thousands of vessels materializing from seemingly nowhere. The display had to zoom out repeatedly to show the full extent of the new arrivals. The bridge fell completely silent. "Impossible," whispered Commander Dahyun, his face pale as he stared at the numbers on his display. Where were they hiding? How did we not detect them? Admiral Ta-Won's mouth opened, but no words came out. The Earth fleet now surrounding them made his mighty armada look like a small scouting party by comparison. And these new vessels bore no resemblance to the primitive ships they had just destroyed. These were sleek, advanced, and positioned with perfect tactical precision. "Sir," the communications officer called out, voice shaking, "we're receiving a transmission from the Earth fleet." Tai-Won swallowed hard. On screen, the image of a human appeared, a man in a simple dark uniform with minimal insignia. His expression was neither triumphant nor angry, but composed and professional. "This is Captain Junho of the Earth Defense Force flagship Indomitable. Your unprovoked attack has been noted and responded to. Please stand by." The transmission cut off before Tai-Won could reply. "What does he mean, stand by?" the Admiral demanded. "Weapons. Target the nearest." His words died as the ship suddenly shuddered. Emergency lights flashed across the bridge. "Weapon systems offline," shouted Sangmin. All emitters shutting down simultaneously. Shields failing. Communication with the fleet disrupted. The reports cascaded from every station. Around them, the tactical display showed similar effects spreading through the entire Krolaxian fleet. Ships going dark, weapon systems failing, propulsion disabled. "How are they doing this?" Ta-Won demanded, gripping the edge of a console to steady himself. "What kind of weapons are they using?" Commander Dahyun was checking readings from multiple stations. "Sir, there's no energy weapon signature, no projectile impacts. It's as if they're simply turning our systems off remotely." "That's not possible." "Sir," the communications officer interrupted. Another transmission from the Earth vessel. Captain Junho appeared on screen again. This time, there was a hint of a smile on his face. "Admiral Ta-Won of the Krolaxian Empire, your fleet has been neutralized. Your weapon systems, shields, and long-range communications have been disabled. Your propulsion systems remain functional, but are now under our control. You will note that we have caused no casualties among your crew." The Earth captain paused, letting his words sink in. "We could have opened with total destruction," Captain Junho continued, his voice level and calm. "But that's not how humanity conducts itself. We prefer conversation to conquest, cooperation to subjugation." On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Junho stood surrounded by his officers as they monitored the disabled Krolaxian fleet. Unlike the primitive decoy ships or even the relatively austere command centers on Earth and Luna, the Indomitable's bridge was a marvel of integrated technology and human-centered design. Information flowed to the captain through both displays and direct neural interface. His crew worked with quiet efficiency, maintaining the quantum field that had disabled the enemy weapons without destroying their ships. "Dimensional pocket network performed perfectly," noted his executive officer. "All ships emerged precisely on target. Not a single unit out of position." Captain Junho nodded. "As expected. Deploy Phase 2 countermeasures." Around the Krolaxian fleet, the Earth vessels moved with impossible speed, completing their three-dimensional encirclement. There was no possible escape route now. The first precision strikes had already disabled Krolaxian weapon systems without destroying the ships or harming their crews. "Sir, we're receiving response requests from 17 different Krolaxian vessels," reported his communications officer. "The Admiral hasn't responded yet." "Give him time," Junho said. "This is quite a shock to their system. Their entire imperial philosophy is based on technological superiority." On his personal display, he reviewed the Krolaxian fleet's specifications. Their ships were impressive by most standards. Powerful weapons, strong shields, advanced life support systems. Against almost any other civilization they had encountered, they would indeed have been the superior force. But humanity had taken a different path. After centuries of internal conflict had nearly destroyed Earth, the species had united and turned their collective intelligence toward defense and exploration. The discovery of dimensional physics had accelerated their technology beyond anything the Krolaxians could imagine. "Captain," his tactical officer called out, "the Admiral is responding." The screen showed Admiral Ta-1, his previous confidence replaced by barely controlled fear and anger. "What trickery is this?" the Krolaxian demanded. "How did you hide such a fleet? What have you done to our systems?" Captain Junho kept his expression neutral. "No trickery, Admiral. Simply technology beyond your current understanding. Your sensors cannot detect ships in dimensional pocket space, nor can your shields prevent quantum-entangled override commands." He paused, then continued in a more conciliatory tone. "Admiral, the Krolaxian Empire has conquered many worlds through superior firepower. Today, you face a civilization that has moved beyond such methods. We have no interest in conquest. Our goal is peaceful coexistence." Taiwan's expression darkened. "You expect me to believe that? You hide your true capabilities, lure us into a trap, and then claim peaceful intentions." "We hid our capabilities precisely because we knew your intentions were not peaceful," Junho replied. "Your empire's history of conquest preceded you. We merely prepared accordingly." He gestured, and a new image appeared alongside his on the Krolaxian viewscreen, a recording of the Earth ships they had attacked. Small shuttles could be seen departing those vessels before the Krolaxian weapons hit. "You should know that the ships you destroyed were unmanned drones by the time your weapons struck. We evacuated all personnel once your intentions became clear. There was no loss of life." The Admiral stared, momentarily speechless. "You now face a choice," Captain Junho continued. "We can discuss peaceful relations between our civilizations, or you can force us to take more permanent measures to neutralize the threat you pose." He leaned forward slightly. "I hope you choose the former. Despite your aggression, we have no desire to harm your people." As he waited for the Admiral's response, Captain Junho looked around at his crew, men and women whose ancestors had once fought each other over resources, ideology, and land. Now they stood united, defending not just Earth but the principle that advanced civilizations should seek understanding before violence. "What are your terms?" Admiral Taiwan finally asked, his voice hollow. Captain Junho smiled. "First, let's start with introductions, not as conqueror and conquered, but as representatives of our respective civilizations. Then we can discuss how the Krolaxian Empire might benefit from peaceful relations with Earth and our allies." "Allies?" The Admiral's eyes widened. "There are others like you." "Of course," Junho replied. "Did you think we developed all this technology in isolation? The galaxy is full of peaceful, advanced civilizations that choose cooperation over conquest. You've simply been looking in the wrong places." Admiral Taiwan collapsed into his command chair, his legs suddenly unable to support his weight. Around him, the bridge of the Krolaxian flagship was eerily quiet. The normal hum of weapons systems was silenced. The tactical displays showed his fleet, 300 of the Empire's finest warships, completely surrounded and disabled by the human vessels that had appeared from nowhere. Admiral Taiwan's face had lost all color as he watched his mighty armada rendered helpless in minutes. Not a single Kralaxian ship had managed to fire more than their initial volley. Some had not fired at all before their systems went dark. The main view screen now showed a different human than the captain he had spoken with earlier. This woman wore a more elaborate uniform with additional insignia. Her face was calm, her posture straight and confident. "Admiral Ta-1, I am General Kim Hanna, Supreme Commander of Earth's United Defense Forces. I believe it's time we had a proper conversation." Ta-1 tried to compose himself, drawing on 3 decades of military discipline. He was still an admiral of the Kralaxian Empire, even in defeat. "Our empire has existed for 3 centuries," he stammered to the human commander on his view screen. "We have never suffered such a defeat. How is this possible?" "Humanity has been spacefaring for over a millennium," General Kim replied calmly. "We simply chose to remain quiet observers. Your aggression forced our hand." The admiral blinked in confusion. "A millennium? But your visible technology, your orbital stations, were designed to be seen," she finished for him. "What you observed was what we wanted potential aggressors to see." Commander Da-hyun stepped forward, standing beside his admiral's chair. "I suspected as much," he said quietly. "The intelligence inconsistencies, the unusual patterns in their development." General Kim nodded. "Your second-in-command shows wisdom, Admiral. Perhaps you should have listened to his concerns." Ta-1 glanced at Da-hyun, remembering how he had dismissed his warnings. The commander had been right all along. "What happens now?" Ta-1 asked. "Will you destroy us, take our ships, make slaves of my people?" The general's expression showed surprise. "Is that what you would do in our position?" "It is what the Empire has always done," Da-hyun answered when the admiral remained silent. "Then the Empire has much to learn about advanced civilization," General Kim said. "We have no interest in destruction or enslavement. We seek only the safety of our world and peaceful relations with others." The view screen split to show another human, a man with intelligent eyes and a serious expression. "Admiral, I am Director Park Ji-ho of Earth Intelligence Division. With your permission, we would like to demonstrate something." Ta-1 nodded numbly, unsure what new surprise awaited him. "Sending data transfer now," Director Park said. One of the Kralaxians' secondary screens lit up, showing technical specifications for their own ships, shield frequencies, weapon calibrations, engine designs. The information was incredibly detailed, far beyond what could have been gathered from simple observation. The admiral watched in disbelief as humans demonstrated knowledge of weapon systems that rendered Kralaxian shields useless. "How did you obtain this information?" he demanded. "We've studied your technology for decades," explained Director Park. "Your conquest of other species gave us ample opportunity to understand your weaknesses." Images appeared on screen. Stealth probes observing Kralaxian ships during previous conquests, detailed analyses of weapon discharges, even interior schematics of their vessels. "You've been watching us all this time," Ta-1 realized, "while we believed ourselves to be the hunters." "You were being studied," General Kim confirmed. "Not out of malice, but necessity. Our history taught us caution. Millennia of internal conflicts prepared us for external threats. When we detected your empire's expansion pattern, we began preparations." The admiral's mind raced, trying to process this new reality. Everything he had believed about his empire's place in the galaxy was being shattered before his eyes. "I wish to see your true capabilities," he said finally. "No more deceptions. Show me what we truly face." General Kim considered for a moment, then nodded. "Very well. Commander Lee will provide a demonstration." The view screen changed again to show a woman in a different uniform, Commander Lee Sun-mi from Lunar Command. Behind her, Ta-1 could see a facility unlike anything in the Kralaxian Empire. Advanced, integrated, staffed by humans who worked with technology that seemed almost magical in its sophistication. "Admiral, Commander Lee acknowledge. Preparing Demonstration Alpha." One of the Earth vessels moved away from the encirclement. positioning itself in clear view of the Krolaxian flagship. It was sleek, with no visible weapon ports or external components. "That ship is 1/5 the size of our smallest destroyer," Commander Dahyun noted. "Yet it moves with incredible precision." "Watch carefully," Commander Lee instructed. The Earth vessel seemed to shimmer, and then, impossibly, it split into 5 identical ships. "Holographic projections," Taiwan said dismissively, clinging to his understanding of physics. "No, Admiral," Lee replied. "Dimensional replication. Each is as real and solid as the original. Observe." Each of the 5 ships then fired a single focused beam of energy. The beams passed harmlessly through empty space, carefully avoiding any Krolaxian vessels, but their power was unmistakable. Were they convergent briefly, a small sun seemed to form, burning with impossible intensity before dissipating. "That energy release was equivalent to your entire fleet firing simultaneously," Commander Lee explained. "And that was at 5% capacity." Taiwan felt sweat beading on his forehead. His mighty empire, the force that had conquered 17 star systems, was utterly outmatched. "Our demonstration continues," General Kim said. The view screen shifted to show Earth itself. Around the blue planet, a network of satellites that had been invisible to Krolaxian sensors suddenly appeared, thousands of them, forming a perfect defensive grid. "These platforms can target and disable any ship entering Earth's space without proper authorization," Director Park explained. "They were active when your fleet arrived, but we chose not to engage them immediately." "Why?" Taiwan asked. "Why allow us to fire upon your decoy ships if you could have stopped us instantly?" General Kim's expression softened slightly. "Because we wanted to understand your intentions completely. Actions reveal truth more clearly than words. Your immediate resort to violence confirmed what we had observed about the Krolaxian Empire. And yet you still haven't destroyed us," Commander Dahyun noted, "despite having every capability and justification to do so." "Violence is easy," General Kim replied. "Peace requires more courage and wisdom. We learned that lesson through centuries of our own conflicts." She leaned forward, her gaze intense even through the view screen. "Before humans reached for the stars, we nearly destroyed ourselves many times. Wars over resources, ideology, territory. We brought ourselves to the edge of extinction more than once." Images appeared on screen. Historical footage of Earth's devastating conflicts, cities in ruins, environments destroyed. These experiences taught us that true advancement comes not from conquest, but cooperation. Not from domination, but diversity of thought. When we finally united as one people, our progress accelerated beyond our wildest dreams. Taiwan looked at the images, seeing parallels to the Empire's own history. The wars of unification, the subjugation of dissenting factions. "The Krolaxian Empire began similarly," he admitted. "But we never moved beyond conquest. It became our purpose, our identity." "It doesn't have to remain so," General Kim suggested. "Your people have great potential. We've studied your art, your literature, your scientific achievements. There is much more to Krolaxians than military might." For the first time since the humans had revealed their true power, Admiral Taiwan felt something besides fear, a glimmer of possibility. "What do you propose?" he asked. "An alliance," General Kim answered simply. "Not submission, not conquest. An equal partnership between our civilizations. Knowledge exchange, cultural understanding, mutual defense." Commander Dahyun stepped forward. "The Imperial Council will never agree. Their power is built on conquest." "Then perhaps it is time for the Krolaxian people to reconsider their leadership," Director Park suggested. "Evolution isn't only biological. Societies must evolve too, or they stagnate and eventually collapse." Admiral Taiwan stood from his chair, his mind racing with implications. Everything he had believed about the galaxy, about his empire's destiny, had been upended in a single day. And yet, strangely, he felt not despair but awakening. I would like to continue this conversation, he said finally, not as conqueror and conquered, but as representatives of our civilizations. General Kim nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. We would welcome that, Admiral. Shall we begin? Earth's Global Unity Hall stood as a testament to human cooperation, a massive structure of glass and sustainable materials that captured sunlight and transformed it into gentle illumination throughout its chambers. The central meeting room, with its circular table and equal seating for all representatives, had hosted many historic moments in Earth's united history. Today would be another. Admiral Ta One entered flanked by 2 Krolaxian officials and 2 human guides. He wore his formal military uniform, though the most aggressive insignia of conquest had been removed. 3 weeks had passed since the confrontation between the fleets, weeks filled with intense negotiations, cultural exchanges, and painful revelations for the Krolaxian leadership. The room fell silent as he approached the table. Earth's highest officials stood in respect, not of his conquered status, but of the difficulty of the moment. President Moon Min-soo, a dignified woman with calm eyes and a steady presence, extended her hand in the human greeting gesture that Ta One had recently learned. Admiral, welcome to Global Unity Hall, she said. Ta One returned the handshake somewhat stiffly. Thank you, President Moon. On the table lay a simple document, not the pages of humiliating demands he had expected, but a straightforward agreement establishing peace between Earth and the Krolaxian Empire. The terms were surprisingly generous, focusing on cultural exchange, technological cooperation, and gradual integration into the wider galactic community that Earth had helped establish. In Earth's Global Unity Hall, Admiral Ta One signed the terms of surrender with shaking hands, not from fear this time, but from the weight of the moment. He was ending 3 centuries of Krolaxian expansion and conquest. He was transforming his civilization's path forward. When he finished, he looked up at President Moon. You could have destroyed us entirely, he acknowledged. Your technology, your fleet, you could have eliminated the Krolaxian threat permanently. President Moon's expression remained gentle but firm. That was never our intention, she replied. Earth leads the Galactic Cooperation Initiative precisely because we believe in progress through partnership, not domination. Violence only creates more violence. True civilization begins when we move beyond it. General Kim, standing nearby, nodded in agreement. Your empire has much to offer the galactic community, Admiral. Art, science, unique perspectives. These are far more valuable than conquered territories. Ta One looked around the room, still struggling to understand these humans who held such power yet refused to use it for domination. It contradicted everything he had been taught about the natural order of the universe. The Imperial Council has ratified these terms, he said finally. Though not without significant debate, many still believe your mercy is merely a different form of conquest. They will learn otherwise, President Moon assured him. Actions speak louder than words or treaties. In time, the benefits of cooperation will become clear. As the formal ceremony concluded, Admiral Ta One was surprised when President Moon invited him to a smaller gathering, a meal shared among key representatives from both civilizations. The formality of diplomacy gave way to something more personal, more genuine. I have a question, Ta One said as they shared food prepared by both human and Krolaxian chefs, about Earth's history. President Moon nodded encouragingly. Please ask. We reviewed the historical records you provided. Your civilization nearly destroyed itself multiple times. Your weapons, your conflicts, they were as brutal as any we have waged against other worlds. He paused, searching for the right words. How did you change so completely? When did conquest become unthinkable to you? The human leaders exchanged glances, and it was General Kim who answered. It wasn't a single moment, Admiral. It was a series of realizations, each building on the last. She set down her eating utensils and continued. The most significant came when we faced extinction, not from external threats, but from our own actions. Climate catastrophe, nuclear weapons, biological warfare. We brought ourselves to the edge multiple times. Director Park added, each crisis forced greater cooperation. Gradually, we understood that our differences were less important than our shared humanity. But surely there was resistance, Taiwan pressed. Those in power rarely surrender it willingly. President Moon smiled sadly. There was terrible resistance. The path to unity was not peaceful or easy. But eventually, the evidence became undeniable. Continue as we were and perish, or change and survive. We chose survival. In the months that followed, Kralaxian representatives were astonished to discover Earth's peaceful relations with dozens of advanced civilizations. The Galactic Cooperation Initiative included species with technologies equal to or greater than Earth's, all working together while maintaining their unique cultures and identities. On his third visit to Earth, Admiral Taiwan was granted permission to visit the Diplomatic Exchange Center, where representatives from 17 different civilizations lived and worked together. He watched in amazement as beings of different biologies, different evolutionary paths, and vastly different technologies collaborated on projects ranging from art to science to philosophy. This defies everything we believed about the natural order, he confessed to General Kim as they observed a group designing an interspecies habitat. The Empire taught that advanced species inevitably dominate or destroy less advanced ones. That competition, not cooperation, drives progress. A common misconception, General Kim replied. We once believed the same, but the evidence throughout the galaxy suggests otherwise. The most advanced civilizations are almost universally peaceful. Those who remain focused on conquest typically stagnate or self-destruct before reaching true technological maturity. Later that evening, during a diplomatic dinner arranged in his honor, Admiral Taiwan found himself seated beside General Kim. The setting was less formal than previous meetings, and after several conversations with other guests, he turned to her with a question that had been troubling him. Your people fought each other for centuries. Admiral Taiwan noted, keeping his voice low. How did you evolve beyond that? How did you overcome what seems to be a universal drive toward violence and domination? General Kim considered her answer carefully. By learning that true strength comes not from conquest, she answered finally, but from unity. From combining our diverse perspectives and abilities toward shared goals. She smiled slightly, adding, we laugh at those who underestimate us, but we extend a hand to those willing to learn, as we've done with the Kralaxian Empire. Taiwan nodded slowly. The Imperial Council is divided on this new path. Many fear it will weaken us, make us vulnerable to other conquering species. And what do you believe, Admiral? She asked. He didn't answer immediately, thinking of all he had witnessed in the past months. I believe we have been offered a rare second chance, one that many of your enemies throughout history were not given. Those were different times, General Kim said. We had not yet learned what we know now. 6 months after the failed invasion, the first cultural exchange center opened on the Kralaxian homeworld. Earth sent teachers, artists, scientists, and diplomats, not as conquerors or occupiers, but as partners in a new relationship between their civilizations. At the center's opening ceremony, Admiral Taiwan stood near the entrance, watching the interactions with careful attention. Most surprising to him were the children, human children, and Kralaxian younglings playing together in a specially designed area that accommodated both species' needs. They had no knowledge of the hostility that had existed between their peoples, no understanding of how close they had come to war. They simply enjoyed each other's differences and similarities with the natural curiosity of the young. As he watched human and Kralaxian children playing together in the newly established cultural center, Admiral Taiwan realized how close his empire had come to extinction through simple arrogance. Had the Kralaxians attacked any other world in their expansion, their conquest would likely have continued unchallenged. But they had chosen Earth, advanced, prepared, and yet merciful Earth. They are the future, said a voice beside him. He turned to find President Moon, who had traveled to the Krolaxian homeworld for the ceremony. Yes, he agreed. A different future than we imagined. Better, she suggested. More sustainable. He watched as a human child helped a Krolaxian youngling construct a complex structure with building blocks, their different appendages working together to create something neither could have built alone. The Imperial Military Academy has begun reforms, he told her. Our training now includes diplomatic approaches and peaceful conflict resolution alongside traditional tactics. President Moon nodded approvingly. Change begins with education. And with examples, Tadwan added. My people watch Earth carefully. Many are still suspicious, waiting for the hidden agenda to reveal itself. There is none, President Moon assured him. Only the shared future those children are already building. As the day continued, Admiral Tadwan found himself reflecting on the strange path that had brought him here. He had left the Krolaxian homeworld as a conqueror, intent on adding another subjugated world to the Empire's collection. He had returned as a student of a new philosophy, a messenger of a different way forward. The transition was not easy. Many in the Empire still resisted, still clung to the old ways of thinking. But as Earth continued to share rather than dominate, as benefits of cooperation became increasingly apparent, resistance gradually lessened. And watching the children play, Taiwan felt something he had never experienced in all his years of military service. Hope, not the fierce pride of conquest or the satisfaction of military victory, but a quiet growing hope that perhaps the future held something better than endless struggle for dominance. We have much to learn, he admitted to President Moon. As do we, she replied. That is the beauty of cooperation. Everyone grows.